Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Each week we sit down for a chat with someone just like you, someone who had an idea, a passion, a dream, or sometimes just a thought, and planted that seed, watched it grow into something they wanted to share with the world. If you have an idea for a topic or someone that would be a guest for the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, where you can join our Never Too Late Cafe Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. Hello, and welcome back to part 2 of our time with Rita Spalding.
People would ask me, well, why did you go back to school when I first went back? And my first answer was, well, because Walgreens wouldn't hire me. I ended up in Murray. My daughter and son-in-law and 7 grandchildren are here, and there's this fantastic university here, Murray State. But just as a consequence of things that happened, I needed to find more adventure in my life. I'm not a person who sits still for anything ever. And I always like to learn. Life to me, everything about it is helping other people and learning new ways to do that. And I have such a curiosity about everything. It's very hard for me to look at something at surface level and let it go. So I started out, my daughter said, Mom, why don't you take some classes? And I thought, years ago when we first started talking about retiring and people would say, what are you going to do when you retire? And most people said, I'm going to travel. I've traveled a little bit. I've traveled within the United States and only a little bit outside. Oh, and I've got a great trip coming up in January. But I've been to Ireland and Mexico and Canada, and I've got this great trip I'll tell you about in a minute. And I want to do that. But before I satisfy the curiosity of what is on the rest of the world, I want to satisfy some of the curiosity I have that I missed when I was 18. I made an early life choice to get married when I was 18, and it slowed things down. So when people would say, oh, what are you going to do when you retire? Well, I'm going to travel here. I'm going to go this and this and this. I would say, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get a degree. I've taken classes off and on through the years, but none of them that amounted to enough to accumulate toward a designated degree. So after I couldn't get hired at Walgreens, and my daughter said, why don't you look at taking classes, I thought, I'm 68 years old. I don't know how this is going to go. I haven't done this in a long time. There's also a program that I want to tell the whole world about. It's if you're 65 years or older and you go to a state college, and this isn't true just of Kentucky, but of most states, you can go for free. You get your tuition for free. So perfect. I'm always looking for a bargain. So that's just perfect. But the first class I took an art class, and it was, and I love art I'm not artistic as far as writing, but I am an art appreciator. I love paintings and sculptures, and I love, again, that curiosity of how did this come about? Why did this person do this? Or even the history of when art began. So there was an art history class from, I think it was called From Prehistoric to Baroque, and Professor Z.B. Smetnick was teaching it, and I know his wife, and I had met him, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to audit this first course because I don't know if I'm going to remember what he says in the class. So I audited, and I talked to ZB ahead of time, and I said, I'm going to audit, and I know that this is an imposition, but I just wondered if you would let me do the assignments and let me take the exams. And if you have the time, if you could grade them just so I can have a barometer of whether I can do this or not. So I did that, and it was a wonderful class. It started out with omics. That was, oh, I loved it. I loved it. So at the end of the course, ZB talked to me and he said, I am so sorry that you did not take this as a credited course because you would have gotten an A. And so I thought, yeah, I feel really good. I'm starting to feel confident, so I'll do this. So I decided I'm going to go full time. I'm going to treat this like a job and we'll just see how we do. So when I started, it was just, I'm going to go to college. Won't this be a wonderful adventure? And I just hope I pass. It's not important what I do. I don't even know what I'm going to major in, but I'm going to have a really fun time. And so I started freshman year. Oh my goodness. I looked like a toilet paper salesman. I thought this is going to be like a job. I'm going to treat it like a job. So I went in, I was retired, but I still had my business wardrobe. So I went in dressed in suits and dresses. And I mean, seriously, I looked like I was trying to sell them something, but I did it. And it was really fun. And people would say, what are you going to do with your degree? And I'd say, I'm going to hang it on the wall. And I was so happy. So first semester, got a 4.0. I was on the dean's list and it was like, yay, how much fun was that? I'm going to do it again. Second semester, 4.0, dean's list, yay. So I am now a senior. I'm in my fourth year, but I won't finish because of the way I played around at first. And I had a couple of semesters where I took 16 or 17 hours, but 12 hours is good for me. That's my best. So I will finish in the spring of 2025, but I've been on the dean's list and a 4.0 almost every semester. Last semester, I ended with a 3.79, so I was a little disappointed that I didn't hit that 4.0 mark, but I was still on the dean's list. And we'll see how the classes get harder as you get deeper into this. We'll see how I do. But it is just great fun, wonderful fun. And I am living my dream. This is what I wanted to do when I was 18 years old. And through the years, the classes I took were fun, but they were not consistent. And I have this insatiable thirst, hunger to learn more and more. And this is helping me. And I've made, I'm kind of stuck in between. So I end up making friends with professors, but that can only go so far because you have the student professor line that you're really not supposed to cross. But I went to some of the events that were specifically for the staff last year and the year before and was able to talk with some of them then. And it's funny because there are some professors who I haven't had yet, but they know who I am and they'll see me on campus. And there's one in particular, hi, Rita, how's it going today? My answer is always, it's just going great. And I'll pass them by and I think, did I have that person? Have they taught me something yet? I can't remember them. And sometimes I haven't had them, but they know who I am. And the young kids didn't know what to do with me. And so what I told them was, I am no different than you all. I'm older, but I'm here to learn like you are. And I want to make friends like you do also. And, I'm just totally in love with this experience. So I got invited to a college party last year. It was so much fun.
Tell me about that.
It was so much fun. Well, I've had a couple of students that said, oh, can we get coffee or, can we get a soft drink? Oh, first of all, I forget the age group sometimes. I'll tell you this real quick. There was a terrible, really, really hard exam freshman year. It was a mess. And after the exam, when we were walking out of class, I said, well, I don't know about you all, but I'm just dying for a beer. Anybody want to go with me? The student looked at me and she said, well, my 19th birthday is next week. It's like, oh, okay, y'all forget it. I'll go by myself. So anyway, so it was that same class, this one student, she's just so cool. She's going to be a teacher. She was having a Halloween party last year, and she lives in Mayfield, which is about 35 minutes from here. And she said, I'm having this Halloween party. Would you be interested in going? And I'm like, yes, I love parties. So she said, well, you can dress up if you want to, but you don't have to. So I said, well, Savannah, just curious, will there be other people my age there? And she said, well, my parents will be there. And I said, okay, how old are your parents? She goes, well, they're in their 40s. My dad's, I think, 42 or something like that. And I'm thinking, yeah, both of my kids. I said, okay, anybody else? And she said, well, my grandparents will be there. And I said, oh, that's awesome. How old are your grandparents? She said, well, my Meemaw's 62. So I thought, good enough. So I went and had so much fun and became friends with one of the other students that was there. And she and I still occasionally we get together. Most of the time when we get together, I just want her to know, persevere, baby. You got it. You've got this. You're so smart. You can do this. Maybe this class is tough. Maybe this exam is tough. But you know what? Even if you don't pass that, it's not the end of the world. You still learn something. There's something else out there. So that was fun. And then there's a guy in my one of my classes, my sociology. I decided to major in sociology, so that's what I'm doing. And I've had a couple of classes with him, and I loved it. First day of class this year, he looked at me and he said, "Oh, girl." I was so excited because he called me girl. So it's fun.
Oh, it sounds like it's so exciting. What a great time. So let me say a quote
Oh my
here.
gosh.
I'll let you elaborate on this quote. I also believe in opening our arms and hearts to abundance and welcoming it into our lives with a joyous heart, and good things can happen. So tell us about your most recent abundance thing that happened.
Okay. Here's something, if you live old enough, you learn a few things. Here is something that I've learned through the years, and I think my book in 92 probably kind of helped me start realizing this. We tend to feel undeserving of things, or we'll say, well, sometimes, well, that's probably not going to amount to anything, or, well, I don't know. My thing is, life is a beautiful adventure. Grab every piece of it, every piece you can get. And that means you are deserving. Accept it, bless it, welcome it into your lives. I take my arms and I lift them up and I say, thank you so much to the universe for all of this gratitude. My gosh, I am so grateful for so many things in my life. And I welcome abundance. And I want everybody to welcome abundance into their lives. And what that means is it kind of starts with seeing opportunity where maybe other people don't see it. Taking a risk. You can think about something all you want. You can plan it all you want. But if you don't open that doorway and step inside, you're never going to know what can happen. And a lot of times, abundance comes from that. So there's little things that happen along the way when we start to welcome abundance into our lives. And it's not that you get lucky and everything's perfect. Life is not perfect. That's what makes it so great. That's what makes you appreciate happiness so much, when you can look and say, even on this worst of worst days, I have found a pocket of happiness. So when I say welcome abundance, the most recent thing was this trip that I'm talking about in January. I've got two really big ticket items I'm super excited about. I'm going to be in London as an exchange student from December 26th to January the 8th, taking a sociology class called Sociology and Evil, The Dark Side of London. We are going to retrace the steps of Jack the Ripper. We're going to go to the Tower of London and get to go into where they kept the torture chamber. Doesn't that sound thrilling? For me, it is. But in addition to that, and part of that abundance, first of all, I'm eternally grateful for the opportunity to do this. This is just fantastic. Part of that is that, oh gosh, we're going to London. Man, I'd love to see Stonehenge, but it's not on the agenda. Also, my 7 times grandfather came to America from Bedfordshire, England, when he was 10 years old as an indentured servant. Well, Bedfordshire is only 38 miles from London. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is part of the abundance. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I want to do this. Well, I talked to the coordinator for the trip, for the study abroad trip, and I said, man, I'd love to go to Stonehenge. Is there any way this could happen? And he said, I don't know, but you know what? I'm going to talk to the faculty leader and see if he would consider an excursion. So if he does the excursion, I'll get to go with the group. But even going further, if that doesn't happen, I will find a way to go by myself. And I will find a way to go to Bedfordshire and step on the same land that little 10-year-old boy stepped on 7 times, my grandfather. So I welcome that. The other big ticket item is so exciting. I went to the Fancy Farm picnic. It's a political, well, it's actually a church picnic, but it's where there's political sparring that goes on. People who campaign go, and under a pavilion, they have, I'll mildly say it's debates. It's Kentucky mudslinging politics. But they always have capital prize. So, and it's a vehicle. Last year it was a truck. This year it was this beautiful Jeep Wrangler, Cherokee Wrangler Altitude. So my friend Candace Greif from New York and my friend Karen Cook from Louisville, we all went together. And I remember when we went up to buy the tickets, I looked at that Jeep and I saw myself in the driver's seat. And it's like, wow, I saw myself driving that Jeep. So the tickets were $5 a piece. I bought 2 of them. And after I bought the second one, I turned to my friend Candace and I said, let's go over here. I want to touch my Jeep. I want to see my Jeep. So, and when she said, well, what would you do if you won? And she tells me, she's the sweetest thing. She said, if I won, I'd sell it and I'd use the money to do this and this and this. And I know you want to go to Ireland again, so I'd use some of it to send us to Ireland and blah, blah, blah. And she said, what would you do? And I said, oh, I'd sell it and pay off part of my equity line and blah, blah, blah. Well, I touched that Jeep and I thought to myself, no, I wouldn't. I have so much fun with this Jeep. So I thought about it. I didn't lift my arms, but I just thought the word abundance, abundance. So we came back here on Saturday night. The picnic was Friday and Saturday night. Saturday night at 10:15, I got a text on my phone, and it said, "This is Fancy Farm Picnic. Call us at," and I had the phone number. You won. I knew there were 2 prizes, the Jeep and $500. And I knew in that instant, this is the Jeep. Oh my goodness. I jumped up. We were all in our nightgowns and I jumped up and I'm running around the room and my friend said, what? And I said, the Jeep, I won the Jeep. And they got up and they were like, oh my gosh. Well, the telephone number didn't have a link. It was just a number. So I had to run around and find a paper and pen to write it down so I could call them. And it was funny because I spent so much time jumping up and down about winning the Jeep. The guy who sent me the text sent me a second text and he said, this is not a scam. You really won the Jeep. Please call us. So I called him and he confirmed it and he's on the phone. And I said, I'm still jumping up and down. I'm still in my nightgown. And one thing I love to do is I love to be barefoot. And I was barefoot and I was in my nightgown, and I love to touch the grass and the ground with my feet because I believe that purposefully grounds me. And I'm thinking, I got to get outside and touch the ground, and I'm about ready to go through the roof. So I ran outside with the phone in my hand, and I'm standing in the grass barefoot, and it's dark. It's, by now it's like 10:30. And I'm screaming, I want a Jeep, I want a Jeep. So that was August the 7th, I believe. And guess what? I now have 2,500 miles on that Jeep.
Oh my gosh. That is amazing. So
I mean, I found I've had so much fun with that. And there's a sculptor, I can't remember his name, but he's a Danish sculptor, and he's done these wonderful statues in Bernheim Forest. They're made of natural content that disintegrates back into the earth eventually. So he's made one in Victor, Colorado, and it's called Rita Planting Rocks. And I saw a picture of it. So I said, that's it, I'm going. So next summer, I'm driving my Jeep to Victor, Colorado, so that I can touch and get the imprint of Rita Planting Rocks. And I named my Jeep Victor.
oh, such an amazing story and such enthusiasm. I don't know if I've ever chatted with anyone that's had such enthusiasm. So, this podcast.
Honestly, it gets on some people's nerves.
Well, so tell us what Bloom Where You're Planted means to Rita.
So I've given a lot of thought to your questions. Two things come to mind. The first thing that comes to my mind, my best friend passed away July of 1999, and her name was Linda Bloom, Blume. Mm-hmm. She had a sign, and it said, Bloom Where You're Planted. And it was really a piece of art. It was on a wooden plaque. It looked like it was German. She was German descent, so maybe that's where it came from. I don't know. But all those years ago, she gave that to me. And I thought, that is so sweet. But I was in Louisville, and I thought I was, put. And my daughter went away to college in 1999 here in Murray. So I gave her that plaque that says Bloom Where You're Planted. And so I thought all these years that Bloom Where You Are Planted meant wherever you live, make it home. What I have discovered, for me, that is not what Bloom Where You're Planted means. It's not a place. It's where you are in life. It's a conscious decision that says, no matter what's going on around me, by gosh, I'm going to bloom. And that's what I feel like I'm doing. I feel like when you see plants growing and you see that leaf unfurling, that's what I feel like, only I'm getting big and bigger and bigger. And it's all about me learning who I am, self-discovery, connecting with other people who have had events that maybe set them back like I had. And, it's what makes a person see beauty. It's what we can allow to come to us. Sometimes we get planted in the wrong place at the wrong time, but that doesn't mean we can't bloom. We can bloom no matter what, and at any age. And by gosh, I'm just getting started.
That's obvious. So, what words of wisdom would you give to someone that wants to do what you've done? And you've done multiple things. Just what advice would you give someone?
Well, when I think about college, sure, it would have been easy to go. I graduated from high school when I was 17, and it would have made more sense to go then in some ways. But for me, it wasn't, let's just say it was not attainable. So my advice would be, if you miss the mark on something, that doesn't mean you've missed the mark. It means that time isn't when it happened. You can make things happen in your life no matter what you've got going on around you. So what I would say is a couple of things. When a door opens up to you, do not be afraid. Never be afraid. If there's a risk and you look at something and you say, gosh, if the best happens, oh gosh, if the best happens, I could be a 4.0 GPA and be driving a Jeep and going to London. That's fantastic. The worst that could happen, there's a myriad of things that could happen. But when the door opens, go through it, for Pete's sakes. Don't step there and look about it and think about it and talk yourself out of it. If you talk yourself out of it, you're talking yourself out of wonderful adventures. So I would say, don't be afraid of risk. When the door opens, take it. You do have to realize that there are limitations. But what I mean by that is you're not limited. Limitations might be something that gets in your way the traditional way. So if there's something that's blocking you, like let's say in using my college experience, I couldn't afford to go to college if I had to pay for it. I'm sure not going to get a student loan now. So let's think through this. My limitation is monetary. How can I change that limitation to make it believable, feasible, and doable? And to change that, it's like research, find out how to do it. So my advice, in addition to opening that door, is when you get there, welcome abundance and figure out a way to make things happen.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, what's next for you? Okay, we've talked about school and London, but what's on the immediate? What's next for
Well,
you?
immediate is I have 2 books in the making. One of them is they're poetry. I write other things, but my heart is in poetry. It just is. I don't know why, but from an early age, that's what spoke to me. Maybe part of that is because my mind does constantly go so much that writing poetry forces me in a natural way to only let things come through that light that need to be seen. So I do still do other types of writing, but this book, I don't have a working title yet, but it's a self-discovery book through poetry. And yes, it's my experience. There are other things in it as well, but what I'm trying to pull out of the things that I've already written and continue to write is, how can my experience relate to another person who might, just like the poem that I wrote for the book that came out in 92 when I got that phone call, can we use this for our meditation for the day? It doesn't have to be something that big, but I would like to have a book where another person picks it up and says, oh my gosh, she almost sank to the bottom of the well. I can see this in this poem. This speaks to me because I've been there. So that's what that book is about. And then the second one is, I'm not sure what the title on it will be. I keep thinking The Letters, but it might be different. I am so fortunate. I've got the love letters my grandparents wrote from 1909 to 1915 up until 2 weeks before they got married. They are just gorgeous. They're the beautiful Edwardian script. They take the letters, and after the first few letters, both of them start putting hearts within the letters. They're beautiful. And a lot of them have just common information from the day, which is very cool because it's like a regional history that I'm able to pull out of the letters in that, but as well as their hearts. And as an example, in one of the letters, my grandfather, it's a Sunday night, and he says, Jenny was her name and his name was Will. And he says, Jenny, I am back home. I am in bed. The horse is in the barn. The fire in the fireplace is going out, but you are still in my thoughts. And I cannot wait until next Saturday when I see you again. So they're beautiful. And I've thought off and on through the years they've been in my possession, how can I make these so that my cousins and my kids and my brothers and sisters can read this beautiful story? We know what the outcome of their lives was. They had a lot of sadness, but they had good things too. And it came to me, a found poem is when you take words that are already written and you don't change the words, but you just selectively choose certain lines, in this case of the letters, and then you create a poem out of those lines. I've read these letters so many times through the years, and as I reread them from 1909 to 1915, there are certain things that they say, and it's like that ribbon. It's like that abstract ribbon. They're still connected, and they're still connected by this first thing they started writing about in 1909. So our subconscious, like it is in dreams, is so strong. Their subconscious from 1909 to 1915 is still living through those letters. So I'm going to do, and I've started looking through them, chronologically. I'm going to create found poems about, it'll be 1909, 1910 through the years, but I will be selecting specific categories and giving them titles. And that's the second book that I'm working on. I have had so many wonderful people in my life, and I've had really good counselors that helped me stay on track, helped me get back on track. And I thought, I think I could be a counselor. I might be able to help somebody. So I'm still playing with the idea. It depends on how exhausted I am when I get my degree, if I'll do it immediately or hold off a semester. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to go to graduate school. And when I get finished, and I'll be older, I'm thinking that, Rita, even if there's only one person whose life you touch and that person says, I am so glad, I see the light, it's worth it.
That's wonderful that you have thought so far beyond, and to be honest, look at people live a long time these days, or can. There's always that potential.
I hope I live to be at least 100.
Well, more and more people do, so you never know. What a wonderful chat we've had with Rita Spalding. Stay tuned next week for part 2. So as our time comes to a close, remember to keep creating, keep sharing, and keep supporting each other. And remember to bloom where you're planted. Bye for now.